I've learned that actually being authentic and bringing my true self to work makes me who I am, makes the people around me want to work alongside me, and makes me a really good leader. So I would encourage anybody out there to be 100% authentic when they came to work, because I think that's how you get the most out of everybody around you.
Hello, I'm Alina Khan, Senior Reporter at FT Advisor. Thank you for joining me for this fireside chat as part of our 51 for 51 series of interviews with women in the profession. With me today, I have Claire Cherrington, Distribution Director at Sesame Bankhall Group. Thank you for coming today, Claire.
Thank you for having me.
So I just want to start with, when you entered financial services, what was it like for you as a woman coming into it?
It was 21 years ago for a start, so I have to think back a little bit. I joined financial services straight from university. I'd done an aeronautical engineering degree at Durham. I was one of 3 women on the course. I think there were 150 men from memory. But when you came to thinking about financial services, or a profession in effect, I didn't want to enter a profession that that didn't represent society in the way that I could see engineering didn't. So I started looking at sort of adjacent industries. Accountancy is very closely linked to engineering and how you think about that. And that's when I started to look at people that would provide qualifications and support to train me as an accountant. I found Lloyds Banking Group. I'm super fortunate I found Lloyds Banking Group because during that time I sadly lost my father. And in that time, I hadn't graduated. Lloyds kept open the place for me, and that bred a huge amount of loyalty for me that meant that I really aligned with the culture and values of that organisation, which was really important as I started my career into financial services.
And as you sort of, in the 21 years, how have you found sort of diversity and inclusion sort of improve, I suppose? Because I think, you know, maybe traditionally, maybe when you started it, obviously financial services was a very male-dominated sector. Going into it and obviously being in a senior position, how do you think it's changed? And now being in a senior position, how do you try to make it even better?
Yeah, so I thought when I was joining financial services after having left engineering that I was joining a more diverse industry. I think that was a surprise to me at still how male-dominated it was back then. I am really pleased, though, when you look at financial services, at the steps that we're making. Is there always more to do? Yes. Not just from a female representation perspective, but sort of right across the board in terms of ethnicity and equality. That's really important to me. I think as a female leader, I've got a really empowering role to showcase how difficult it can be and talk differently about some of the skills that you can embrace as a woman to really sort of make your career very different to that of a man, and showcase how you do that with a lot of authenticity.
And what kind of skills as a woman can we embrace to do that?
So when I think about what makes me different, so if I think about the USPs of Claire, I think I've realised quite recently that I'm probably neurodivergent. That is quite exciting for me because it means I can cope with lots and lots of different concepts, ideas, workloads, change of direction. And I've learnt to embrace that and use that to really be very clear with people, drive through change and empower others. I also really like the fact that I know my limits and I'm very open to trying my best but accepting that I might fail. And I live by the mantra of I will die trying.
And sort of coming to that realisation that you were neurodiverse, how did you feel supported sort of within your role in sort of coming to terms with that and sort of coming into the workplace and embracing it? And do you feel that as a wider topic that neurodivergence is something that is sort of addressed enough when it comes to workplaces and things like that?
I think we're getting much better at talking about it. I'm very passionate about neurodivergence because I think that there are, you know, we all understand now, I think, that there's a spectrum. There's a very extreme spectrum for some people. I see that it really helps me because I've understood myself, and I think that's really important. It took me a long while, though, to get comfortable with me being me. I'm also dyslexic. I really struggle in some social situations. And again, I've learned that actually being authentic and bringing my true self to work makes me who I am, makes the people around me want to work alongside me, and makes me a really good leader. So I would encourage anybody out there to be 100% authentic when they came to work, because I think that's how you get the most out of everybody around you.
And any young women wanting to enter the industry who perhaps are doing aeronautical engineering, thinking,
Hopefully there's a few more these days.
yeah, hoping, oh, maybe I'll go into financial services. What would you tell them?
So the first I would say is you don't need a degree to enter financial services. This is an amazing industry where we have apprenticeships and sponsorships and lots of different routes to gaining qualifications and being super successful within financial services. So explore and understand all the options. Talk to friends, family around you that might be involved in financial services, but also seek out different mentors, different options, and go and look at workplace experiences where you can get some experience. And I think more broadly, just read around the subject, follow different people, understand if financial services is going to be a place for you. I hope as we go forward that financial services will become even more representative. I truly believe that actually giving great advice and helping people on their financial journey can only be done if our advisor base really represents what society looks like. So having a wide range of people, different ages, genders, ethnicities is really important to our industry.
Absolutely, and obviously we know that within the advisor community that at the moment there is a larger proportion of men than there are women, and I suppose how can we better promote the opportunities that of being an advisor can bring for women?
I guess I would ask everybody in our industry to support us on that challenge. I think bringing in more new talent into our industry is really important. Yes, women, but equally just different ages and different backgrounds, because that does really help. We need to be thinking differently about how we engage new generations coming through to provide advice to them, whether that's in face-to-face advice, whether that's hybrid, whether that's digital. We need to be thinking differently about how we deliver advice solutions to clients, and making sure that we stay relevant, that we're engaging with them in platforms where they want to be engaged with. And I think you only do that if you really have a workforce that's representative.
And do you believe sort of this digital advice model is something that is going to grow as we go forward, because perhaps the younger generations are more technologically adept, say?
I think digital will certainly have a role in advice going forward. I think we need to make sure it's right for the people that are using it in the right way. But if you look at what customers and consumers are choosing to do. I do it in my own personal life. I engage digitally with many things. So I think working out how we get the right models to provide advice, and actually using the benefits of technology to be able to deliver advice at scale to people. We know that there's an advice gap. We just don't have enough advisors to be able to deliver the amount of advice that we would love to in the UK. So actually getting out there through digital platforms, but we need to really make sure we understand how we're doing that and making sure that those models are evolving in a safe way so that it is the right advice for our clients.
And when it comes to female clients, we know that there is a gender ISA gap. You know, a lot of women tend to hold a lot of their money in cash, perhaps to their male counterparts who choose to invest that. How do we begin to change that? And how do we begin to get women to look at their money and think, you know, I can take on more risk here. It is, you know, I have the ability to do that. Does that come from having more female advisors to be able to maybe have those conversations and sort of, you know, come from a similar sort of base of, you know, I understand how you're feeling, and or does that come from perhaps, you know, putting that out on social media and spreading awareness and guidance?
So what you said at the start there about men having different risk attitude, I think is at the heart of this. So women definitely are less risk adverse, is what studies have shown. I think that female advisors can certainly play a role. I think that when it comes to just dealing with women, there's two things that I would say. So one is you've got to make sure, man or women actually, that you're really comfortable with the advisor that you're working with, that they understand what you're trying to get out of a situation and that they can empathise with you and understand where you want to go. I think the second point for me is just really making sure that you are financially independent as a woman. I think situations can change and life doesn't always play out in the way that you might want to. So really thinking through some of those situations if life doesn't go to plan. I've recently split up with a partner. That means that financial independence is much, much more important to me than it's been historically. And I think only when you've got that really good relationship with an advisor, male or female, can you really start to understand that and address female and women's needs in financial services.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Claire.
You're welcome.
And thank you for joining us. Just to remind you of our weekly podcast, FT Advisor, where we delve into the latest headlines, and you can get all your latest investments, mortgages, pensions, insurance and regulatory news with us at FT Advisor. See you soon.